Hi, and welcome to another Wholesale Investor Capital Raising Breakdown. Today we're breaking down the article, how travel startup Travello kept growing during the pandemic. This is in the Australian Financial Review, and the reporter is Yolanda Rudrup. I hope I say the name right. So basically, this doesn't sound like a capital raising article, but actually there's some really good tips in this article for any company that's raising money, and really basically there's some just great business positioning tips as well. So it starts to talk about online youth experiences marketplace. Now look at how it's actually described. Online youth experiences and then marketplace. Travello has emerged swinging from the worst of COVID, banking fresh funds from notable industry executives despite suffering a substantial revenue hit. What an opening paragraph in it says. So online, obviously digital, right? That's what everyone's thinking from the start. Youth experiences. This is obviously increased because of the pandemic. Now, if you think about sort of Gen Z and sort of Gen Y that have been at home for periods of time, now they're trying to do a lot more travel to make up for lost time during the actual pandemic. Now, it goes on to describe then down below that, and then also it mentions marketplace, which are typically quite popular in Australia. So marketplaces and obviously SaaS businesses are very popular to the Australian investor ecosystem. Sort of scrolling down, once again, it mentions about notable industry executives have participated in this actual capital. Then the next article, which I think is really important, it goes on to describe how the company was founded in 2016 by Ryan Hanley and Mark Cantoni, who grew its organic audience across social media such as Facebook by more than 3,000% throughout the pandemic, going from 3 million people to 100 million. Now, down the bottom, it doesn't really highlight that it's 100 million followers. I think it might be 100 million views, but I could be wrong, but I'll sort of keep on following. But what's important, right, is if you think about the connection, online youth experiences marketplace, and then it's showing how it's absolutely smashed its social media presence during the pandemic. And it then showed that it achieved this by creating travel content and tapped into the wanderlust felt by people across the globe who were stuck at home during the lockdown. So genius strategy on the part of two founders of the business who basically weren't able to sell their existing service. So then in doing that, they actually built a following. They built massive online awareness to their targeted audience about what they do to further offer services down the track. Now it goes into highlight, the company just raised $6.5 million. Now it's interesting that they didn't lead with this in the start in the actual headline, but it's highlighting that they raised $6.5 million from travel industry executives, including Flight Centre, which is obviously one of the largest, Jim Goldberg, and former Velocity CEO Phil Gunter, and ex-tourism head Andrew McAvoy. So just think about that. The three people it's highlighting, once again, that immediately takes the company from unknown to known within seconds to be able to say that those three people were part of that cap. Now, it doesn't highlight exactly how much they put in, and I think that's important to note because for all we know, it could have been 25K, 50K, 100K, 250K. All it highlights is that they were investors in that round. For any investor looking at that, they sit there and go, that's interesting. These three people who obviously know obviously know a lot about the travel space have all participated in this round in this round of capital from a travel startup that was massively impacted by COVID, as it highlights in the next paragraph. It says that Travello's revenue plummeted to zero as it reined in corporate costs, cutting marketing to nil, reducing their own salaries and putting staff down to 4 days a week and 80% pay. So, it just shows that their ability to be agile, act very quickly, and saying that they did suffer. This wasn't a rosy story for them all the way through. But what it then highlights is that as a company, they had a conscious decision to actually grow their audience. Now, I imagine from their perspective, they had similar philosophy to us where it was the more awareness you can create in a period like that when people will go quiet, the stronger you can come out on the other side of this type of situation. So I think for any founder, if we ever have future situations like COVID where our entire businesses are impacted, we should basically take this as guidance for our strategy for what it should be, in that if that situation happens and people are at home, our goal is to make ourselves as visible as humanly possible whilst managing all the other challenges that we have to deal with at that time. It goes on to say, we created this viral content. People didn't lose their thirst for travel. He said, we started embedding Travello into our posts and we were seeing thousands more downloads every single week. The company now has, and this is why I found that the top statements are a bit confusing, but it says now it has 1.2 million users across 180 companies. So just think about how powerful that is to have that sort of visibility now to that audience, to promote their services, and to an audience which has got pent up demand for wanting to actually go and experience travel. And it literally describes that down here. And not only did they do that, but they also made an acquisition in that time. As well as providing a marketplace for booking experiences, Travello expanded the online travel agent space in November and acquired backpacker deals for an undisclosed sum. Absolute brave leadership and management there to not only massively increase their online profile whilst dealing with the challenges they had to deal with internally, raising capital, making acquisitions, etc. And I said doing that at a time which was not the easiest set. And then it goes on to highlight that it rivals TripAdvisor's Viator and Asia's Goway. Said the market started to turn around and some revenue started to flow again last October, and by November it was having a 40% month-on-month increase in sales. So as I said, great management, great leadership to actually build that visibility at a time when it said they were dealing with all sorts of other challenges. So really, no matter what happens going forward, they have a strategy for approaching it, and also they've got cash in the bank. One of the biggest things to sort of highlight to companies over and over is that why you should always be raising is because you never know what problems or what disasters are around the corner and how it can impact you. However, if you, as Mike Cannon Books read, the number one thing, don't run out of money. If you don't run out of money, there's options available for you and there's moves that you can make at that time. The latest capital raise will expand the business into markets such as Europe and the US. Consumer behavior has shifted to digital, and Travello is perfectly positioned to capture this market with their digital-first approach. The pandemic has brought an end to some iconic travel companies focusing on the youth space. Sorry, I should say that again. The pandemic has brought to an end some iconic travel companies. Focusing on the youth space and pent-up demand for youth travelers is palpable, right? So just highlighting, said they, knowing their market as well as what they did, and just so you know, investors really are looking for businesses that can succeed with the Gen Y and Gen Z marketplace, because effectively they're setting themselves up for a strong 5 to 10 years of adoption of investment from those markets going into those companies. And also there's a massive wealth transfer at the moment going to millennials and going to Gen Y and Gen Z at that same time. So I said lots of great takeaways for any founder in this article about how the positioning of your business, the structuring, and just how you can, said anytime you come across the next challenge, said how to actually approach it. But even right now, really all of us should be doing everything we can to be increasing our online awareness and thinking about who our clients are 5 to 10 years from now and how we can be potentially approaching them so they can join us for the journey. So I hope this article was helpful for you. I said I found it really insightful for me, and I learned a lot from their strategy and understanding it. And also said, once again, it just ticks off all the things we talk about as far as capital raising brand when positioning your business to raise capital in the future.